Okay, everyone, we have a huge game coming up in the Premier League this weekend. Chelsea against Manchester City at Stamford Bridge this Sunday. I'll be there for Pro Soccer Talk, so head over to the website for all the latest information ahead of that game, reaction analysis during it and after. It's going to be a fun one in West London as Mauricio Pochettino and Pep Guardiola lock horns once again. And we've seen over the years how many sparks fly when those two managers go head to head on the sidelines. If we focus on Chelsea then heading into this game, coming off the back of that much-needed derby win away at Tottenham Hotspur, can they now kick on? We're about to see they're obviously still a long way off the top four, but they did win 4-1 against Tottenham. Nicholas Jackson got a hat-trick, but my word, that doesn't tell the whole story of what was probably the craziest Premier League game in a decade, even longer, maybe all time. Again, I was there for PST, and that was absolutely just carnage from start to finish. VAR, red cards, offside, penalty kicks. Chelsea got the job done, got the win in the end. But Pochettino's side were playing against 9 men of Tottenham for quite a long time. Didn't look like they were going to break through, but they did. Jackson got his goals, but it was a really hard game to analyze due to all of that chaos, how, impacted the flow of the game was by those red cards and Tottenham sitting back a bit deeper. But when we look at Chelsea's attack, they did score 4 goals against Spurs, but Jackson scored 3 of them. He could have had another 3 or 4. And actually very wasteful in attack, which has been a theme Chelsea fans have seen throughout the season. I don't have to remind them of that. So now can they go from looking dangerous on the counter, which they did against Tottenham, even when it was 11 against 11, and can they convert more of those chances? I think that's what Pochettino wants to see from his side. 2 players I really want to single out for that performance in that game and recently really are Cole Palmer and Raheem Sterling. They've been excellent, especially just in those roaming roles where Palmer in particular will drop deep, get the ball, link up midfield and attack. And he really has taken his game to a new level this season after leaving Manchester City in the summer. And of course, Raheem Sterling, again, delivering assists, great runs in behind, and is really getting back towards the heights that he hit under Pep Guardiola at Man City. So Sterling and Cole Palmer in particular will really want to impress against Manchester City and show Pep Guardiola, you know what, this is what you're missing. Yes, City made the decision to let them go, but both are still quality players, and they're showing that for Chelsea so far this season. And another area of improvement for Chelsea, as well as that finishing off their chances of being more clinical, is defensively at the back. I mean, against Tottenham, again, it was a weird game to analyse, but even when they went 2-1 up, they gave up 3 really big chances to Spurs from set-piece opportunities, crosses into the box, switching off a little bit in wide areas. And they're going to have to improve on that because a team like City are going to punish you for those kind of defensive mistakes. And we saw it in their home draw against Arsenal a few weeks back that Chelsea have the ability to hurt teams, press them high, score goals on the counter. But then you do worry about them defensively a little bit, holding on to leads. They are a young team. They do have a lot of injuries. And when you look at their bench, aside from the starting 11 and maybe a couple off the bench, right now with so many injuries, they do have a bit of a dip in the level of players they can bring on. But good news, Reece James is back from injury. The skipper played really well in the last couple of games. So that's a massive boost for Pochettino's side heading into this one. And of course, they're going to need all their big players absolutely firing on all cylinders heading into this big clash against Manchester City. Focusing on Manchester City then, do we think Pep Guardiola is going to keep rotating this side expertly? Because they've really kind of kicked on and it's business as usual after a few defeats early in the season, which had everyone guessing, are they hungry enough? Are they going to repeat the treble this season or even more than that? They can't do that because they're out of the League Cup now. But Guardiola's side are back to the top of the Premier League table. They won 6-1 at home against Bournemouth last week, beat Young Boys of Bern in the Champions League 3-0 to reach the Champions League last 16 with minimum fuss. They're already through to the knockout rounds of that competition. And that's all led to Guardiola rotating expertly. And it just seems like they're starting to hit that gear that they do at this time of the season, right? This is autumn, winter time. Man City have worked out a few of the issues they usually have early in the season. And this just seems, like I said before, business as usual for Manchester City right now. When we look at the attacking players they have, Jeremy Doku has been one that's really stood out and been rotated into the lineup. Big summer signing. Kind of went under the radar a little bit when he arrived at Man City, but had a great performance against Bournemouth last weekend, scoring, assisting, so many goals in that win. And he's been a real live wire. So if he starts on the left, his battle against Reece James, I think, would be one to watch for sure. And then you also have the likes of Jack Grealish, Julian Alvarez, obviously Phil Foden, coming in and out of team, finding their form, and all of them seem to accept in this lineup that, okay, Erling Haaland's probably going to start up top, and then it's between 5 or 6 of us here to split time in these attacking areas of midfield. And right now, it really is working for Manchester City, and Pep Guardiola has so many different talents to call on in that attacking third of the pitch. That said, injuries are starting to cause City a few issues, especially in that defensive and holding midfield area. We saw how much they missed Rodri when he was out through suspension recently. But then John Stones as well. He can play that hybrid midfield, right back, right centre back role so well, and it's been so important to Guardiola's side in recent months. He's out injured, and Guardiola said that's a big problem for them. Akanji's been struggling with injury recently. And then Kevin De Bruyne, he's still out as well. So let's not forget City have been demolishing teams recently without arguably their most talented and most influential player in the team. So that shows just how they're humming along very, very nicely in the Premier League and Champions League heading into this international break. In terms of some of the key battles I wanted to focus on, I mentioned it there briefly. Doku, if he starts against Reece James down that flank, I think will be a really intriguing battle. And in midfield in particular, Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez for Chelsea, coming up against Rodri, could be Bernardo Silva in there, in those central areas of midfield. That's going to be key to City trying to dictate and control the tempo as they like to do. But Chelsea had some joy against both Tottenham and Arsenal, pressing high, winning the ball back after it first goes into midfield. And that's mostly been down to Fernandez and Caicedo really improving both individually and together as a duo. And I think they're only going to get better. They're so young, so talented. And that's going to be a really key area of the pitch. And of course, stopping Erling Haaland is another key battle for any team that comes up against Manchester City. Thiago Silva and Axel Disasi looks like they might start a centre-back once again. So having, maybe Silva going first knock and Disasi covering in behind to use his pace, that could really stop the impact of Erling Haaland. But again, I don't know when you can really stop all of the attacking weapons that City have and cut off all the supply lines to Haaland. But it's going to be really intriguing to see how Chelsea come up against City and try and come up with a bit of a different game plan, because we've seen them mix things up, be much more of a counter-attacking team than maybe Pochettino's sides have been in the past. And I think they can definitely take that tactical approach against Manchester City this weekend. Interesting stat I want to point out. Pochettino has won 4, lost 7, and drawn 3 of his 14 Premier League games against City. And we know, especially when he was manager of Chelsea, they had some great success. Manager of Tottenham, they had some great success against Manchester City in the Champions League. So now he's manager of Chelsea. He'll like to try and replicate that. Again, I think it'll be best for Chelsea to sit in deep, try and defend, try and pick off moments to press Man City when they play it into midfield and hit them on the counter, and the likes of Palmer, Sterling, maybe even Mudryk if he comes in to start or comes off the bench, and obviously Jackson as well with that pacing behind. That's how they can really hurt Manchester City this weekend. My score prediction for this game, all important. You can see it there at the bottom of the screen. Chelsea 1, Manchester City 2. I think this will be a really tight battle, perhaps a lot tighter than most of us expect. But I just think that extra attacking quality will show. A few defensive issues I've seen for Chelsea, and also going forward, Chelsea not making the most of those chances they create. I think it's just a little bit of a gap in quality between the two teams right now. Chelsea are heading in the right direction. I think they're still away from the top 4, but they are going to, when players come back, really push closer towards that. I think now it's time we see Manchester City kick on and put down a bit of a statement to the rest of the Premier League. Catch us if you can. So as I said, I'll be at Stamford Bridge this weekend for Chelsea Man City. Head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for all the latest for this game. It's going to be a huge one. Always great when Pochettino and Guardiola pit their wits against one another. And I'll have full coverage over on the website before, during, and after the game in West London. It's going to be a beauty. Chelsea versus Man City. Looking forward to it.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.